And we are live. Hello, everybody at the Elephant and Castle community. Sorry, we're a little bit late. Nature calls, right, Michael?
Oh my days. Yeah, at the wrong time.
Michael Dantzie joining us once again. We haven't heard from you in boy, about a year, I think was the last time we had you on, and
Right.
that was the first time. But brother, I'm so glad that you can join us today. How are you doing?
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm all right, man. No complaints with these crazy times, man. If I'm here like this, I just got to give thanks, man. So I'm all right. I'm good. I'm good.
You say crazy times. How has the last year been for you?
It's been interesting. It's been interesting. I can only look at the positives because that's what I try to do. We've got a home here with a garden, so when we weren't able to go out as usual, like the whole nation couldn't, we had a garden to
Hmm.
just go out for the children. We tried to buy a trampoline, and we searched everywhere. There was no trampolines anywhere online. Amazon, all the main shops you could think about, the major brands. We had to go deep down into Google. You never go to page two, right, or three
No.
or four. We were getting into those kind of pages, and we finally found a place, bought a trampoline for the kids, so that their mental well-being, instead of just being cooped up in the house all day, playing computer games. There's nothing wrong with computer games, but man, it gets. We had to just try and do that. Bicycles were gone. Washing machine, like board games, like all types of board games were gone. It was interesting. So it was challenging, but
Hmm.
we got through it with little things like that. But at the same time, we spent more time together, which is because you had to.
Hmm.
You were forced to. So we were all right. They started to get to the kids though,
Yeah.
because they're very close with my brother's children. He's got three as well, and I've got three. And since they've been both born, because my brother and I are close, we see each other regularly. And so my youngest one, I remember one time saying, "When are we going to see our cousins? When are we going to see our cousins? Why can't we see our cousins?" And
Mm.
sometimes with children, unless you ask them what's wrong, you really don't. You really think everything's okay. But I'm learning they're interpreting and internalizing the world around them every single time. And unless you're intentional to say, "Hey, how's your day today? Is anything wrong?" They won't come out and say, "Daddy, I've been thinking. I think we need to go out more." Or, "Daddy, I've been thinking." Very rare do children do that. Some might do that, but so I realized it was kind of getting to them a little bit, not seeing family, not seeing their cousins who they used to seeing regularly. So good thing for technology, FaceTiming, WhatsApp video calls. We just had to do that a little bit more.
Michael, for people who don't know, you work from home. You look
Correct.
after three children, so you're a
Correct.
stay-at-home father.
Correct.
Which is it's something when we look at the kind of archetypical family, nuclear family that we grew up with, which is like dad's away working all the time, mom's at home
Correct.
looking after stuff. Kids are always like dependent on mom to cook and clean and do all
Yeah.
these things, and really you are a hero of mine because you're challenging these old ways of thinking and
Right.
old ways of doing things. And I'm interested to know, like, heading into lockdown, give people an idea what it's been like, because this is from the birth of your first child that you decided to work from home and
Correct.
raise the kids at home. What brought that around? What made you want to challenge the kind of the norm, as we say?
So, to be honest, it's a book that I read. This idea of homeschooling growing up was for bad children, because I had a friend, a good friend of mine, still a good friend to this day. When we used to go to church as little boys, that's where I met him. He said, "Oh, I don't go school. I go school at home." So, oh, so at first think, "Oh, wow, that's great. Why is that? You can just do whatever you want, play games, whatever, play your computer." Back then, it was Game Boy, Sega Mega Drive, Nintendo. And he said, "Oh, no, I've been expelled. No school would accept me in the area." I was like, "Oh." So that always stayed in my mind because he was the only one I'd heard of growing up that was homeschooled. So I always had this negative perception that it's for bad kids who can't go to school, and kids won't accept them. So schools won't accept them. So it was a book that I read called Education, and just the concepts in there on what education it went far more than just looking at a certain course of study, a certain, we're learning subjects and then we go to secondary school and then college in the UK, and then university, and then PhD, masters. It presented concepts or ideas about character and development holistically, physical, mental, and spiritual, and it just blew my mind. And it was kind of easy to accept new concepts because my experience going to secondary school wasn't that great. You see, when something's, you're already kind of primed for a change, because really, some people's experience are great. Oh, I loved secondary school. I think in America, the equivalent might be high school. It's from 11 till 16. And, so it was a book that I read, and I said, wow, when I have children, I said, I want to give them the best. So it was from that perspective of just wanting to give them the best. And there's so many things in my upbringing that were great. My parents are parents, good people. But, I'm sure there's all of us, we can sit back and go, I don't think that was a really good move you did that day, mummy or daddy. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of left a scar or a wound, or in fact, the word is trauma. I believe if you look at the etymology, trauma is from a Greek word meaning wound. And so there's things that's wounded me. And, thinking about these things, I said, I want to try and give them the best that I can. So that was the motivation behind it, to be honest.
What were the wounds that you grew up with?
Oh, Nick went right there. I should have known this. I've been in lockdown too long. Boy, which one can I pick? Like I said, I always put a disclaimer to say, my parents did their best. They weren't abusive in any kind of way like that. They loved me. My mom, especially because. So let me give you a quick background, I should say. My parents, they separated, unfortunately, divorced when I was about 5 or 6, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember it, what my dad was wearing, what my mum said, and how my dad left. And so what's easy to mention in terms of what's always on my mind was the way. So because I was with my mum more, and then my dad on the weekends, or I should say our dad, just me and my brother, it was my mum's how she dealt with me discipline wise. It was very impatient. It's just the smacking wasn't smacking. It was more than just smacking. You got that, and then you've got Street Fighter. If anyone really knows about Street Fighter, right? And yeah, so it was just, and the thing is, my personality, unfortunately, I'll say unfortunately, because it was one where if you give fire, I give as good as I get. So even as a young boy, that didn't really work with me. It was like, so I responded in that way. So I had a very, 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 very bad temper. Thankfully, it wasn't where it spilled over to bullying or hurting other people. That didn't happen, but it was there. So I could defend myself. I wasn't afraid of people. My brother has so many stories about me defending him on the streets where we grew up, because it's kind of like a poor area. We call it the ghetto. Wasn't as bad now in some of the knife crime. Those things weren't really happening when we was younger. But you had your areas and whatnot. But that would be the main thing. And to me, it wasn't really that as well. It was the non-acknowledgement at the time. The non-acknowledgement that something's not. Okay, I didn't do well there, I kind of lost it. The thing is, my mum, the thing is why I don't hold anything against my mum, because she did say so in her own way. Because she would come into the room and, kiss me or say, we're going to go Pizza Hut. I'm going to take you to the cinema, And so growing up, I didn't really hold any kind of resentment as such. Or not that I know. It kind of was like, how come mommy did that? Blah, blah, blah. Because there were times she didn't. There was times that she did. So I would say that was kind of a motivation as well. I said, when I have children, I'm going to try my utmost best to just talk, reason, find alternative ways to enforce discipline. And it seems it's working. You know, people comment on my children. I'm like, well, it's taking some hard work, because when you give them freedom and reasoning, sometimes you forget because you know when I joke about it all the time, because it's like when you say, okay, then yeah, we're gonna reason. Come on, say what you want. Go on. You know, I'm a new school dad. Go on. And then when they do, the old school comes back, because you know it's hard to go against what you've learned by nature. You know, you can have theory in your head, but it's hard to, because I've received the wrong, or more wrong than right. So, you know, when they speak their mind to me, I'm like, I'm ready to, then I have to go, oh, okay, oh yeah, I just remembered I've given them the freedom to say what they want, because I want to reason with them. And they've got to see, my principles, they've got to see my justice is fair. How are they going to see that if I can't reason with them and explain to them why I'm enforcing what I'm forcing? Just a quick one before you go to the next question, Nick. A quick example. So we got Netflix, right? Everyone knows about Netflix. Now, in my day, when we were watching our programs, sometimes my mum would be like, right, time for bed. And in the middle of that excitement, it's almost like when you're on a fun fair ride and imagine someone pulls you off, you'd be like, the emotional letdown is too much. You had to go to school the next day and you couldn't join in the conversation. I'm sure we've all experienced that. And when it was over, it was over. Like, that's it. It ain't coming back. It may come back at Christmas time. It may come back on VHS. You know, for any young people watching, Google what a VHS system is, right? It may come back. So my kids, I remember when they were moaning, oh, I have to go to bed now. This thought came to my mind, because I'm always thinking, how can I get through to them that I'm being fair and this is for your good? So I said, children, listen to me, do you know how it was in my day? They're like, how was it, Daddy? I said, we didn't have Netflix. We didn't have TV on demand. So I explained to them, tomorrow morning, it's still there. It's not going anywhere. So I said, you're not missing anything. Like, literally, you come downstairs and you resume where you left off. So I said, I'm not being fair. You have to go to bed. You're young. You have to get your sleep, blah, blah, blah. So go to bed. Right? And they haven't complained since, because they can see all that kind of. And I always ask them, does that make sense? Like, well, yes, Daddy. I said, I ain't gonna do that to you like what happened to me. Like, you finish, then you can go to sleep. Like, even sometimes when it's gone over late, I let them finish the program. And that's the thing, because they're home educated, we can bend the curfew for bedtime loads. I'll be honest, loads of times. You know, loads of times. So, yeah.
Okay, there's so much I want to unpack, because we talked about the word trauma, and trauma as being something, a wound, and I think that people, when they think about the word trauma, they always think of that it has to be physical, like a beating. And I think it's really important that we create awareness around the fact that there's a wonderful man named Dr. Gabor Mate. He's written a book called The Realms of the Hungry Ghost. Yeah, and he talks about like womb trauma, where a mom can actually have trauma while carrying a child, and the trauma being actually cellular disruption to the baby.
Wow.
So, and it could be physical, but it can also be mental, can be fear, can be substances, where that fetus, that baby, will then grow up with a trauma that it was completely unaware of.
Wow.
But it's actually cellular damage. And they talk about, he really goes into addiction, and he talks about that these traumas can be the source or the manifestation of addictions. Wow. Where people don't feel quite right, you know. And I know with me, like, I was like, why didn't I just fit in? What was wrong with me growing up? And I know now that there was some trauma growing up, and I had a lot of trauma from a violent, I always say a violent alcoholic father, because he was, but he was also a very loving man too, when he wasn't drinking. Right. I don't want to demean my father. Yes. He was a troubled man. Yes. But my mom, so I ended up, you know, with these traumas, and they say that not every one with trauma becomes an alcoholic or an addict, but all addicts or alcoholics have had some kind of trauma.
Wow.
And again, it doesn't have to be a beating. It can be different forms of cellular disruption. As you said, it's a wound. And these wounds can take place in many different forms. And I think it's really important that we create awareness, where I don't know many people who haven't had some kind of trauma growing up. No one has led that perfect lifestyle. We all had traumas. So we need to create spaces for people to become aware of these traumas and to be able to help people heal. And I'm now really interested in, and you also talked about the word discipline. And it's really interesting to kind of, for me, Michael, my world has changed since I talked to you, buddy.
Oh wow,
Uh,
wow, wow.
okay, so I'm gonna tell you this is that
Okay.
I ended up, falling in love with someone who has
Congratulations, man.
thank you. She's got three wonderful boys,
Right,
ages 12, 9, and 5.
right.
And she's from the Czech Republic. So she had these children growing up playing ice hockey.
Okay,
And I'm an
okay. That's
ex-professional ice
right.
hockey player.
That's
So
right.
so when I met them, I was thinking that, the universe has put us together for me to be involved in the family. Now their father was and is not allowed to see them because of violence towards them.
Right, right.
So these are children who have had a lot of trauma in
Mm,
their life.
right.
And Michael, all I knew, yeah, I'm 50 years old, and all of a sudden I've been involved in these children's life. And all they know is how to treat their mother the way their father would have been, which is very
Mm,
aggressive and bad language and demanding. And then I step in wanting to discipline them, which is a word I want to try to work with you on.
yeah.
And all I knew is what my dad taught me, which is don't you do that.
Mm,
Don't talk to your mom like that. And then scare me. And Michael, inside me was this anxious, scared 8-year-old boy
right.
responding to these other children, and it was very hard. And it's taken a long time, to a year of work of trying to get this kind of relationship. And I thought that I was there to save them, right? And it's kind of like
Right.
I tell people this story that, what Baywatch, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I tell the story that there's this woman and her 3 kids out in the water, and
Right.
I'm a Baywatch guy, and I'm like, hey, everybody, watch me go save this person. So
Right.
I grab my little life thing and I swim out, and I get there, and I'm like, hey, lady, I'm here to save you. And I'm panting. I'm like, and she goes, hey, dude, I'm a mermaid, and these are little mermen. We're good. We can have.
We're
We've
fine.
been doing this for a
Yes.
while. We're fine.
Yeah.
You better get your butt back to the beach. And I think that, so this is a lot to talk about, is that we're talking about trauma, discipline, and savior complex, all in the space of a couple of minutes. But I just wanted to let you know that that's what's happened in my life. And now I've got this beautiful relationship. I'm now a bonus dad to 3 boys that all play ice hockey.
Wow.
um, isn't life amazing?
It is, man.
But you inspire me because you challenge, and what you do is you talk about work, and it is not easy
Mm-mm.
to just sit there, and we work with children thinking that if we tell them something, they're going to be able to listen and comprehend it, when really it's more about actions, right? They learn by seeing. And how do you practice that?
So let me answer the question this way. Discipline is
Mm,
more about you than about them.
mm,
So that's a whole concept that can be unpacked for many hours. But if parents understood that, no, discipline is not about them, it's about you. You think, well, why is it about me? Because your state of mind is a reflection, your discipline is a reflection of your state of mind. Your discipline is a reflection of what you think your goal is. So the goal is not getting my child to move the bottle from here to here. That's not the goal. And here's a concept that I've shared with my social circle who have children. I says, and I've asked them the question, what do you think the goal is parenting? And everyone gives their opinions. And they're all good, but those ideas, whatever people say, is like secondary. No one, few understand this one principle, which is this: the goal is not for them to get the bottle from here to here, like whatever the bottle may be, whatever the action may be, go to bed, eat your greens, whatever. The goal is for them to love this. I love putting the bottle over here. I want to go to bed. That, if you start to think, how do I get my child to love? And obviously, there's different stages of development. You can't get a baby to do that. But, so it's like, how do you get the child to love? And then you start asking questions. How am I going to say this? And now you have to have a plan. Because now the question is, how do I get you to love this? Then you start to reverse engineer. Then what can I do to get you to see this is for your good? And then you start to ask, right, what shall I say? What shall I do? Because we don't, as parents, we assume we know what we're doing. Just because biologically I'm a parent, am I mentally a parent? Some of us didn't plan your situation. You've been placed in that situation by circumstance, a good circumstance, you think, yeah, I'm glad I'm here. And they're like, right, now I need to adapt. Okay, what do I do? And what you find is if there's no plan, there's just reaction. Because there's no plan, there's no thought process. And for me, I don't like to tell parents what to do in this situation, this scenario. I'd like to give concepts and ideas for them to apply to their situation, because every child is unique, every child is different, every parent is different, every situation is different. There's too many scenarios to think that you can give some kind of black and white rule to say, when they do this, then do this. When they say this, then do this. I'm like, nah, to me, that's not going to work. It's more of a... So that's what I'm trying to do. So when it comes to discipline, my goal is not to get you to listen. I'm a man. And I've got personality traits where I'm like, it's easy to get them to listen, Nick. It's not difficult. I just raise my voice a little bit. I'm 6 foot and they listen. And then you think, I've done my job. Is it really? Because internally, are they loving the fact that you've told them to move this bottle, and they may be moving that bottle for their whole lives? And then guess what? They're going to come to the age where now they have the strength, the power, the fortitude to say, no, I'm not moving that bottle no more. And then you're shocked. But I thought I was a good parent. But they did the actions all their lives. But internally, there wasn't that connection, that relationship, that emotional vulnerability to make a connection with not the object, but with you, because you're saying this is you, right? We're all different, with different backgrounds, faith, non-faith, this, that, but you're trying to impose your image onto them. But you believe that image is good, because you as a person, who thinks that they're not a good person? Yeah, all of us think we're good people. Right? So we think, well, what I'm saying is good. What I'm doing is good because I love my child. Yeah, but okay, I'm not saying we don't, but let's try to. And here's another concept, Nick. I never went into parent thinking I know what I'm doing. I started with a blank slate. I don't know what I'm doing because I was afraid if I may not challenge certain ideas that may be damaging. So I'm going to challenge everything. So let's imagine we got a table, and the table represents parenting. We don't start with, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. We start with nothing. We take it back and we say, right, what is the goal? What am I trying to achieve? So like you're asking, I'm sure you're asking, what am I trying to achieve with these boys? What do I want to get through to them? And as you start to think, ideas will start to come to your mind. Okay, let me try this. Let me do this. Let me say it this way. And when something happens, how am I going to respond? And it's that response that question allows you to plan for a crisis. When a crisis happens, the firemen don't go, go, yo, Jimmy, where's the water hose? Yo, Jimmy, where's the keys to the truck? That's what we do as parenting. And so we go, oi! Do you know what I mean? Get away from that fire! Because we see it as a fire, right? Because we've lived their lives, right? We don't want them to get burnt. So I liked what you said, because my brother came to the same conclusion and shared that with me. We're scared. The reason why we overreact, he goes, Mike, you're just scared that they're going to go down the same roads you have. And I was like, oh, man, you're so right. It's fear. No wonder I'm overreacting. Because, Nick, let me not play it up here and dress it up. For the first 6 years, so let's go for my oldest, she's 12 now, she's going to be 13. For the first 6 years, it wasn't great. I have to be honest. I say that because someone might be watching to give them encouragement. Like if I've got it wrong, don't beat up yourself too long because your children need you. So don't stay in that space of regret too long. We should be remorseful, but not to the point where that guilt is crushing, because it will hamper your improvement. It's good to have remorse and reflect, but I say don't stay in that space too long, because you should never feel condemned, but you should always feel remorseful. Condemnation is different. Condemnation is a room and it's black and dark. There's no keys, there's no windows, there's no doors. I don't believe in that. I don't subscribe to that. You should be like, okay, I made a mistake, but try to move on and grow as a person, because the children need you. And when you're in that space of feeling guilty, I haven't done right, and I know what that feels like, you're still not able to be there for them emotionally and calm and peaceful and look at other alternative ways to try and get through to them so that they can love moving the bottle from A to B. And that takes time. That takes a very long time and extreme patience. Humor works, Nick, I would say as well. My last point on this, humor. I'm not a humorous guy, naturally. I'm not. I'm very stern, very strict. So I've come out of myself to be very humorous with them, to when they've done something wrong, I use a bit of sternness, but then I laugh at the very end. I joke about it at the very end, and so it helps their emotional state to get connected with me, because I find it's just a minor infraction. They're kids. They're not picking up guns, shooting people. Like they're just kids. So don't make it that the whole world is collapsing on them because they've done this wrong. And for me, from a religious background, it's worse. It's worse because then that is superimposed on them, and you're like, oh, but they got to do God's will, and then that's a whole nother discussion where, well, is it the right ideas you've even learned about God and that? And that's another discussion where I've had to be like, no, I'm looking at this again. If God is love, then how do I bring that into my discipline, into my personality, into the way? So for me, that's another concept, an idea, because I believe he's a real person, he's in my life. Then I need to show that with them. And that's what I'm trying to do, to be as loving and as kind and be balanced, you know. But I use a lot of humor, a lot of humor.
Okay, I'm gonna. I think I'm a pretty funny guy. I think what's funny, what's really interesting though, is that when I'm just with them, when it's just me and the boys, and we're driving to the hockey or we're going to the playground, and it's me and just the boys, there's a lot of laughter, a lot of jokey. Like it's like, and I could see them watching me and trying to learn. And this is the word that I say to you is they're trying. And in the beginning, Michael, I couldn't see that. All I could see is, like you talked about, the discipline was me. I was not able to meet them where they could meet, where they had the ability to meet me. This was me having, I think they've come into they're teachers for me. I'm not here to teach them right now. They're here to teach me so that I can then be the right energy of discipline, where I can come to them in a loving, so, and then the dynamics change when their mom comes in, because I think there's a whole thing of like, who's this guy? Who's this guy that's just come into our lives and is coaching us hockey and cuddling mom and telling mom that he loves her, and where they've never seen any forms of affection or anything. And and it's taken me a little while to go, man, their little brains must just be going, what the heck is going on here? But the bit that made me tear up the other day was that I had this realization. I saw them trying, Michael. And it was beautiful, you know, just go, wow, these kids, they're trying, their little hearts are out there, and it's such a, like I say, they're teaching me more than I'm teaching them.
Yes.
And I think that this is what I want. When I'm working with men, I want to be able to say that doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how young you are, we're all teachers for each other. And for me, you know, I love the word love, because love is everything, and love is action, and love is kindness, and love is like an action towards someone with, it's not necessarily reciprocal. You're doing something to be of help, you know, rather than expecting anything in return. And it's just, I think the thing that I'm learning it right now is that we're all in the different dynamics of, like, we have to be patient. Things are not going to happen overnight. I'm not going to go in and fix anything. You know, I'm not here to fix anything. I'm here to just add to their lives, and they're here to add to mine. And I'll tell you, the last couple of months for me have been, you know, I'm almost 51 years old. I've had some of the biggest revelations in my life. You know, that a 5-year-old can teach a 50-year-old.
Yes.
And, you know, and this is like, I love the fact that the book that really kind of changed your life was Educate.
Yes.
Right. That was the title of the book. And I've been looking about that I was listening to a doctor from Toronto the other day, and he was like, you know, the derivatives of the word educe, you know, which is like two people having mutually accelerated declarations will create love, that bond between two people where you're just vulnerable and you just say, hey, I don't know. So I can say to the boys, I don't know. I don't know. Let's figure it out together. You know, let's figure this out together. Or I actually do know that when I did that, it hurt me and it hurt other people. So maybe let's not try that. You know, and then that's when the love happens, is that they're teaching me and I'm teaching them. We're both educators. I might be the older one, but it doesn't mean that I'm the teacher.
Can I share a funny story quickly?
Of course.
I'm shocked that my children, I don't know what it is with us where I say with us as parents, or now you're kind of like a parent. I can call you a parent, right?
Bonus dad. Bonus
Yeah,
dad.
bonus dad.
Yeah.
You know, those of us where it's like the children. I don't. It's hard to get what I'm trying to say. Okay, let me just say in the story, or in what happened. I tell my children some of the stuff I've done back in the day, the bad stuff, right? Because we have this time where we call it worship, where we sing some songs, and then I go through a lesson, right, with them, and I use not just the reading of the Bible, I use my life experiences sometimes, right? And I've done, and that's intentional. And every time, and I started to do it to be fair because of my brother. Because when my brother comes round, I let him put them to bed because my brother's an excellent storyteller, and he's so funny. It's ridiculous, right? He'll have you laugh. Like everyone who meets him, like, I thought your brother was quiet. I'm like, yeah, he's crazy, and he's mad. So I remember the first time this happened, I said, Jonathan, can you go and put him to bed, because he's got his own kids. So they're in the one room, and I'm hearing noise. So I go upstairs to tell them off, right? And it's my brother doing all these antics and going, and I'm standing at the door like this. And I just had to close the door and be like, oh my days. There was a time when I was a bit really OTT and strict when they were toddlers. Like, I don't want to have too much crisps and chocolates, no crisps. He goes to the shop. He buys this big packet of the golden with the 24 pack inside. He opens it and he goes, Father Christmas has arrived. He's like, pew, 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 right? And I'm sitting in this room like this. And I can't, because we're really close in. And my brother, he's a good guy. So I know if he's doing something, there's a reason behind it. So later I said, John, why are you doing that, man? Like, Chris. And then he broke down his philosophies, and I thought, that kind of makes sense. So I took it on board. So going back to when he used to tell them stories about me, because they'll come downstairs the next morning and say, Daddy, I didn't know you did this. You had this fight. You beat up this guy. You know, you stole this from the shop. And I'm like, and at the time, up until that time, I had never told him anything. Never. So I was kind of feeling embarrassed, like, oh. So I'm sitting like sheepishly saying, yeah. And then I realized, but it didn't affect them in the way that I thought it would. I'm looking at their reaction, and it's almost like they love me even more. They relate to me even more. And I'm sitting there going, huh? So I started to tell these stories. And the point I want to emphasize is them being shocked. It's a deep thing for me that they're shocked. So I started to analyze, well, why are they shocked? That means they see you in this light, which really is fake, because that's not who you are, Mike. I'm not saying we're defined by our mistakes, but what I'm saying, these mistakes have shaped me, because I've learned and I'm learning, and the reality is, this is me though. The whole package, this is me. So am I trying to present to them subconsciously, this wasn't consciously, subconsciously, like warts and all, as they say in England, warts and all, everything. You see what I mean? And so I've started to share with them my challenges, especially my boy. So I've got 2 girls, 1 boy. He's right in the middle. And it was my wife, thank God for my wife, who told me this. She said, Michael, you need to relate to your son. Tell him. Because she found he doesn't really listen when you're just telling him the why, the discipline itself. He will argue back. He's very sharp. He likes to talk back. But she found when she said a story, how she went through something, he got it. Okay, Mum. He likes to reason. He's similar to myself. He's kind of almost like a carbon copy, watching me, watch my nuances, how I talk. He's grown his hair like myself. So he likes to reason a lot. And it's kind of counterintuitive when we're trying to tell him something. And he's, well, that don't make sense. But so I remember trying this out. He was playing football at church, and I come into the room. It was a top floor. They were playing football, and I saw him crying. So when the church service, when the day finished, because church had finished, and this is evening time, we're just chilling and whatever, and he's playing football with the kids. So he comes out, and we're on our way home. And I went to ask him, well, why are you crying? He said, oh, the kids, they were playing really rough, and he's a small guy for his age. And I felt my past coming back, like, oh man, did they try to bully him? And he's got to defend himself, blah, blah, blah. So I was talking to him kind of strong, saying, I told you to be careful and da 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 da. And my wife kind of just, she gave me a little tap on my thigh. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, okay, it's me, Solomon, it's me, all right. Dad, look, Daddy's sorry, yeah? I says, look. And I brought my tone and I says, look, the reason why I reacted that way is me, I felt like I let you down. Listen to me, I wasn't there. This me, because those feelings of you crying bring back to him. And then I started to go into my story. I says, when I see you crying by yourself, I says, I know how that feels, Solomon. And then I told him the story of when I was getting bullied in primary school one time by this bigger boy, and I had to call my friend's bigger brother to get it to stop, right? And as I was telling this story, the look on his face, he kind of wiped his eyes, right? And you could see now he was engaged in what I was saying. He got what I was saying. And so it always a surprise to me that my kids are shocked that I've done wrong things. And for me, I'm embracing that. Tell them. Like, I remember when we first told them that, yeah, we weren't married when we had you lot. Isabel, the first one. I said, we weren't married. Isabel's like, oh! This is me, yeah, we weren't married. They're like, what? We've told them. And as they get older, I tell them. In fact, there's nothing I really haven't, not afraid to tell them, because to me, we live in a real world. So my personal philosophy, I won't encourage other parents, but me personally, I'm like, I tell them what's out there and inform them, because I know the environment we're in is a unique environment. They're not at school. So I'm telling them in the hope that there's some kind of preparation to meet certain circumstances. I have to tell them. I'm not like, oh, you're 6, you're 7, you're 8, you're 9. I dress up in a way that's meet for their minds, but I still inform them of certain things as it comes up, because they're sharp, these children. With the internet and YouTube, we do vet what they watch, but still, they're sharp, and they hang around with other children in other environments, and the other children bring certain information, and they will ask me, Daddy, but Daddy, where's so and so's parents? I remember when they first asked me that about certain cousins of mine. Who's their dad? I was like, ooh, do we cover this now, or because they're in an environment where they're only seeing one thing, which was husband and wife. But no, I had to explain, no, there's other scenarios that happen. And I said, it doesn't mean they're bad people. I said, just happen. And then I told him, I said, look, how I came to the world. I said, my parents weren't married. And they're like, oh. And you see them, the little brains going, but why? Why wouldn't he stay? And I was like, you're asking me that and you're 7? So, yeah.
Oh, you've hit the nail on the head. And I think this is one thing that I'm learning too, as I look at like the program that we've developed, which is called Tough Through Tender, and how we've looked at the development of young boys' brains, and from 8 years old to 12 years old, 12 to 16, etc. And how I was kind of given this role of like, I can't look weak, I can't look like I'm wrong, I've got to be this guy that doesn't make mistakes and stuff. But then when I tell them this is the whole thing about this mutually accelerated declaration, is these declarations of like, I did that, and I stole from a shop, and I ended up in trouble, and I lied to my mom, and I took from my mom, and and I was a little thief when I was a kid. And I know that wasn't because I was a thief. It was because I was scared, and stealing gave me some agency. So now when I look at kids and I think, and they want us to nick something, I got to go, why? What is it? What are you feeling when you're stealing? And whereas we're sitting there, there's something wrong with that child. And there isn't, in terms of, they're not evil.
Yes.
There's something that's happened to them.
100%.
So let's try to figure that out. And I love what you say, that these kids, like, they're not going to learn off of somebody who's never made any mistakes, because they understand that we do make mistakes. They're built into figuring out that mistakes are actually about how we learn. It's not losing or a mistake. It's just learning, right? And I think that's the bit that I'm getting, is just this honesty, an honest approach to people, is that, like, as adults, we're not perfect. We're extremely flawed, and children recognize that in a flaw is this there's a bond, a unity that's made, not in the perfectness, right? Not in the image of perfection. There's no bond there, because they can't. They don't see it.
Yes.
They see imperfections, so let them see our imperfection.
Yes. Yes.
And that's when I think love is created.
Nick, the reality is they've seen my mistakes since birth.
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
am I kidding? Like they've
yeah,
seen when I've said something wrong to my wife and I shouldn't. They've seen me blow up. So I have to develop a strategy to navigate and show them I'm not just trying my best. I'm fighting to try my best. It's not just oh, I'm trying. No, 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 no. Your dad. He like the analogy I've given them is there's two of us, and one Michael has to win that day, and it's not the one I don't like. So we're in that ring, and I'm like, no, not today, mate, because I want to be with my kids, not this one. And so I say to and for me that word sorry is my strategy, my coping strategy. When I've always, and I can say this confidently, and you can ask my children if you ever meet them, I've always said to them, when I feel something has been done wrong, said wrong, wrong tone, I've gone against my personal philosophy of how I'm trying to raise them, treat them. I've always said, Isabel, sorry. When now it's funny. They like you said, they children teach you. They teach me. I'm. Do you know, Nick? When I've said sorry to my child, Isabel, she hugs me and kisses me. It's all right, Daddy. When now it's funny, while I'm coming into their room all sheepishly, and because I take ages in it, I sit there for one, I'm like, or I tell them to come to this other, I say, Solomon, and they already know, and then he's smiling, I'm like, why are you laughing? He's like, I know what you're gonna say, Daddy. I'm like, what? He's like,
it's okay.
it's okay, he's sorry. I'm like, but why is he calm? Why is he smiling? I'm not you. And I remember tearing up afterwards trying to explain this to Janine. Why am I not getting used to this when this is something I preach? This is something I teach about grace. Why am I not getting used to this? Why do I feel awkward that they're receiving me so quickly? Isabel's like, it's okay, Daddy. And I'm sitting there like, no, but you should be, you see, in your way, you should be, right, I'm going to hold resentment against you. And I realized, man, and in that moment, I realized, because I've never, this ain't theory now, experienced this type of love. Because I've never experienced that, I'm ready to, for them, like if they went and walked out, I'd be like, yeah, that's normal. Yeah, it makes sense of what I did today. But they're not doing that to me. They're doing the complete, and I'm sitting there thinking, and that's what motivates me to say, nah, you know what? All right, round two, let's get in again. Right? Because these kids are so lovely. They're so lovely.
Yeah.
So precious.
They are, they're not adults. They haven't been, where we've been taught we can use a sorry to our advantage, right? You're sorry, so I'm going to make you pay, rather than, the beauty, innocence of a child. Oh, Daddy made a mistake. I make mistakes. That's okay. He forgives, and that's
they move on so quick, Nick. It's like they
yeah.
literally forget. And I'm like, Lord, please, that is what I want to live life. That innocence, that purity, that simplicity. It was no big deal. You're my dad.
Yeah.
So they really have taught me in ways that they can't understand yet. And I just want to keep that. So when they get older, I'll be like, you have no idea you saved your dad. You have saved your dad multiple times. And they'll make them know that's why you were put on this earth for me. You saved me. So just remember that. Stay the way you are. Be the way you are. The same grace you've extended to me throughout. And they're going to remember, right? I'll be like, just live life like that. Towards others, remember. Because you did it to me when you was younger. Just keep it up. For me, that essence is the most powerful thing. And something that you're bringing through. Getting men to... I don't want to even put a word in it because it's so big what you're trying to do. It's just...
Be human, just to be
yeah.
human,
So,
and in our humanness, geez, you made me cry there. Oh, buddy, you get me a lot. You get my emotions going. I love you, brother.
wow, Nick, I didn't know, man, my friend. I really didn't know, man. Wow, that's something to hear, my friend. Seriously, that's encouraging, man.
We sit there and like we're always going, where's my teachers going to be? Where's my teachers going to be? And I'm always looking up for older men, and all of a sudden now I've got three men teachers. Their combined age is like What's 12 plus 9, 21, 26 years old. Their combined age is 26.
Right.
And these are the men that are teaching me right now. And I'm probably the best version of myself that I've ever been because of these
Wow.
young men. So
Wow.
I
Wow.
think that if we can look at at children as teachers instead of, these things that we have to mold, that's
Mm,
not, that's not what I'm here to do.
right.
Let them find let them find their own humanness, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, buddy. So I think we've kind of run out of time, dude.
Cool. No worries, Nick. This has been a pleasure again, man. Seriously, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to get together, maybe in a park somewhere with the kids, and
Yeah, that would be
um,
nice, man. That would be nice.
that would be nice. I'd really like that.
Yes. Yes, that definitely
We'll
be nice.
arrange. Let's have a wonderful holiday time, Michael, and
Likewise.
just stay in touch. I love you, man.
Yes, Nick.
Thanks everybody
Will
for
do.
joining us. Don't forget at 11 a.m. on Thursday, I'll be running a Tough to Tender workshop, and the link will be in the Facebook feed. So we'll see you then. See you, Michael. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.